one of the last things I was asking you about, I guess, about a week ago was just kind of an extended break here. How do you feel like your guys have maximized that time?
Well, it's getting to be pretty close to our finals are coming up relatively soon. And so I think our team with a couple of days off got ahead study-wise. That's the hope and the theory. Definitely rest, rehabilitation, those that needed it. Based on today's practice, I would say that the break has been good. We had high energy today. They were focused. And we turned our attention to Washington, and you could tell they were kind of re-energized. And I think that's what you're trying to get out of this time of year.
I guess, were there anything lingering from the Ohio State game that you think is worth taking, or is that just put that in the past and move forward?
We watched some film on it and tried to learn best we can. I mean, it was pretty easy to figure out, the problem, right? Some turnovers, and we just, they were better than us. We just weren't completely sharp, and but give them the credit, they outplayed us. Not a ton to learn from it that we didn't already know.
Has it been weird, given the schedule where, sometimes you guys have one day of prep for a team, sometimes you're traveling, you're on the road for a whole week, that you've just had this kind of week to not relax, but just, has it broken up your schedule a little bit, I guess?
That's a great question. Not to single him out as a great question. Yours was equally impressive. But yes, it's not the same schedule every week that we've been used to for a long time. And I kind of liked that, the rhythm of our former conference that season. I don't want to use the name now because others are now using it. So yes, it's a different rhythm, with the mandated at least 2 games in between, but sometimes one's a travel day, and like you said, we only have 1 day to prepare. You just make the most of it. It is what it is. I think rest at this time of the year is important. I mean, sure, we could cram in another practice, but we choose not to because I think rest is critical. Our kids, do we really need to work on more pick and rolls? It's keeping them fresh mentally as well as physically.
And then this is the second year in a row, I think, last 5 games you played your closest geographical conference opponent in the last 5 games. What's kind of just weird about that setup?
I wish they would do something about that. You play 13 games and you don't play one of those teams until the 14th game when you have to play them twice. I don't like that. I think, let's say one of us has a key player out, hurt, or whatever the case is. I believe that they should be spread out a little bit more. But it is what it is. We have to. We have to play them. It's going to be a heck of a game both ways. They're a good team. We're both fighting for positioning, for NCAA seeding, for Big Ten tournament seeding. So it's important. But I wish it was a little more spread out, yes.
To me, at least, this feels like one of the better Washington teams that you guys have probably faced. What stands out with them? And obviously they have some really high-end players.
Yeah, well, Tina does a really good job. She has built that. She didn't have a lot when she first got there, and it took her a couple of years. She's recruited well. She's retained her players, and you can tell they have good synergy. They play off each other really well. I think what makes them difficult is you got 3 players currently on their roster that have had 30-point games, and then in Howell, in Sellers is an elite point guard, and Eladine, she's one of the elite players. She was first team all conference preseason. So you put those 3 together with, Hannah Steins, who has the highest plus minus on their team. Her numbers are down a little bit from the past, but she is that glue kid. Bryn McGoy, the talented freshman, has really come on. And then they have a good, solid, experienced backup that gives, so they've got good size inside. But I think what makes them tough is you've got to guard all 5 every single time. They can all beat you. They space as well as any team in the conference. If you watch them and stop their action offensively, anytime during the possession, you'll see great spacing. And so they make you defend. It's going to be a challenge, no question. And you mentioned the point guard. Yeah, Sellers is just elite. She, obviously still pretty good. Her assist numbers are down a little bit, but, she's still capable of getting you 8, 10 assists, but she's capable of scoring 35 or 38 points in a game. And when she gets on a heater, she's pretty tough to stop.
I'm curious on specifically your two sophomores coming off kind of a lesser game. What have you seen from them this week, and what are some priorities for getting them going? Because I guess you said after the game, it's hard to win these type of games if you're not getting the best out of those two in particular.
Yeah, well, you guys have watched us. They've had some ups and downs, and typically they don't both have kind of a lesser than good game. They did. And, again, give Ohio State the credit. They put so much pressure on you. It was kind of hard for those two to get going. But, Heath has been great. We talked about it after the fact, and she knew that she needed to do just a little bit more. And, Katie's just a work in progress. There's times when she just is so on that, but her effort and Ahisa's effort, they were the same. They're just execution sometimes wasn't as good, and obviously her production. But they moved on. I think they both have had great practices this week, so I think they've already turned the page. It's guys like you that keep bringing it up, Scopel.
And it seems like last week, Heath comes off the Big Ten Player of the Week, and both Illinois and Ohio State were regarding her differently than teams were previously. They were picking her up when she was bringing the ball up the court. They were throwing doubles and stuff at her. Like, how do you think she just is going to have to be able to handle that added attention now that she's not really, an unknown, I guess?
Yeah, and that's part of growing up. She's still relatively new in this kind of, in the attention that she's getting. So she'll adjust to it, and we'll adjust to it a little bit better. Ohio State's kind of an outlier. It's their style just doesn't really match ours very well, and we didn't handle it well the first time we played them. So if we see it again, I think we'll be better. But she'll adjust.
And with I know you're not going to speak for the players, but Katie has connections to Seattle. Obviously, Ari was at UW. I know you don't like them, and Sophia's from the state. Like, how do you sort of balance the emotional aspect of this game and being in Seattle versus playing in it?
Well, yeah, obviously it's a great rivalry, and we're both really good teams, so that's going to up the ante, so to speak. Katie and I were talking today. She's got a ton of family that's going to be at the game. Trey, one of our coaches, obviously played there. I think it's got all the makings for continuing to be a great kind of rivalry here. It was a little one-sided for many years, and Tina's done an awesome job. She's really made that team viable. Hopefully, Katie can control her emotions, right? It's always difficult when you go back. She's been there and done that last year, but in a different role. So now that she's the one that everybody's watching, it could be a little bit more difficult. Ari, I think she's now been here a couple years. I think that kind of fades a little bit. But it's a big win, a big game for those guys in particular, but obviously it's big for our team. And the last time we had a rivalry game was the Oregon State game, and we played really well. And I remember asking the team, man, why did we come out? Well, we don't like them, and we were focused. Hopefully we have that same kind of energy and get the same kind of start up there. We played pretty well on the road. I think in conference play, we played better on the road than we played at home so far. So hopefully that trend continues.